Hello. I'm going to make this video on diving a little deeper into the escapism stuff that I did. And I think a lot of that's going to be video games. But there are a lot of ways that I tried to escape reality throughout my life. So yeah, I guess I'll get started from as a child, school, swimming, and soccer were kind of the main things that I did to kind of be out of the house and away from, the whole situation that was going on. At the time, I didn't, as a kid, I didn't think, oh, I'm gonna go escape. It was more like, oh, I really like these things, so I'm gonna go do them. And yeah. Also, going with my grandfather. My grandfather would, twice to 3 times a week, he'd go shopping, and every time he would go and take me with him to go shopping. And so that was another escape thing, where it was I think he saw that he's like, oh, I want to spend time with him, and then there's also this thing going on in the background that I think he knew a lot more than he let on when it comes to my mom and dad's relationship. So, because I know that my dad and my grandfather had a falling out. And my grandfather was my mom's father. My dad's side of the family lived far away. So anyway, there's not really too much to talk about other than there really was a falling out that me and my dad had over swimming, where he kept pushing me to do swimming, and something that I loved doing, he kind of sucked the fun out of it. And I was just very angry at him for trying to get me to push myself even harder than I already was pushing myself to do a lot of swimming stuff. And at some point I was just well, fuck you. I'm not going to do this anymore. As kind of, even though I loved doing it, I was hating doing it more and more because of just his kind of attitude towards it. So I stopped doing it. And looking back, I definitely wish I didn't, but also at the same time, I can totally understand my perspective of dad's pushing me to do something past what I wanted to do. This is something I like doing for fun. I didn't care about if I won first place or not. I just loved doing the swim meets and competing. Just the art of swimming. I just loved doing it. And he took that art and he tried to make it not art, but a science that you tried to analyze and make just not fun. I don't know. So definitely that was part of it. There was also another part of it, which was there was some anxiety around going to swim meets. So I had done a ton of swim meets, and the swim meets themselves were fine, But there's that, and then there's like junior high and high school swim stuff. I actually don't know if junior high specifically did swim, but I know high school did. And when I had that break between, a little kid and junior high, as soon as I stopped swimming, as soon as I stopped doing like soccer, because I did soccer for like, I think it was like a year, and as soon as I stopped being as active as I did, I gained a ton of weight. Like, I went from being as thin as a rail to like, I was like 220 as a kid during junior high. And I got bullied a lot for being heavy in that like era. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic here from the escapism stuff. So like, the sports were one escapism valve. The second was my grandfather. Just going over and hanging out with him was always like really fun. And then the third is going past junior high into high school. There was this friend who, he was like my best friend at the time. We ended up, he's the guy that treated me like a dog. In fact, just to like hammer the point home here on this, my first World of Warcraft character was effectively named after a dog in a card game. I'll just say that. And at the time, I just liked the name. I didn't really care about the connotation of like what was really going on there. But that was like just another layer there. But I still like the name, but I have kind of disassociated the name from that like card, because it's like, it's my name, and it doesn't matter where it came from. I have a lot of memories associated with it. So, yeah. But anyway, so I was friends with this person. We got into a few different card games, and I went to tournaments with these card games, and so that was fun. There was also kind of computers were starting to become like more and more like normal to have in the house at this point. Like, we had a computer when I was in junior high, but it was like not everyone in the house had a computer. It was more of like, okay, this is the family computer, and that's kind of it. So getting my first computer was a big deal. And I think I built it myself. I don't know if this was the first one I built or not, but regardless. I think maybe this was the one that I just like, it was like a Dell or something. But That was like, I think, the only computer I didn't build. Every other computer since I've built myself. But yeah, so get this computer. I'm so excited because it's like, oh my gosh, I can like play games on this computer, which is like, whoa, this is cool. I had I kind of forgot to mention before, there was what's it called? We had a bunch of game systems. So that was a big escapism thing as well as a kid growing up, where it was like, oh, we got the Super Nintendo, and so we get to play like Zelda. And my neighborhood friend had a computer. They were like one of the first people I knew that had a computer, and they actually had two computers. One for like homework for like the kids, and then the other for the father that did a bunch of stuff. I don't know what his job was, but it required him to have a computer. And so the kids, now this is like such a classic, like, parents not knowing technology moment. The kids got that this household was very religious. Like, we are Catholics and we do Catholic things, and it was like, it was a whole thing. So you can see where this is about to be really funny. One of the kids got a hold of Diablo 2. And it's like, there's no way that the parents would have let them play Diablo 2 on the computer if they knew what that game was. But yeah, so my friend had Diablo 2, and that, and also he had Age of Empires, and Age of Empires 2 as well. And those games were like, that was the first time. Oh yeah, and then there was also the they had like an older son that still lived with them that had Nintendo, like just the base Nintendo that he had, like Duck Hunt and Mario. I think it was like Mario 3 or whatever. It was the one with the, like, you had the different world maps, and you had like the boats and the other stuff that moved around the map, like the hammer guys and all that other stuff, and you had to go through the different castle levels. I think that's 3. I don't know. But anyway, so we played those. I think he actually had 1, 2, and 3, but I just remember playing 3 a lot. So that was like my first foray into video games as a kid. And then later, the first system was the Super Nintendo, and then we got a PlayStation, and then a PlayStation 2. And so those were the 3 mainstay, like, consoles as I was growing up. And then also, my other neighbor friend got a N64, and he had like all of the fun, like, N64 games, like a lot of the Mario stuff, also the what's it called, Diddy Kong Racing. That was really fun. Or not, wait, was it Diddy Kong Racing? I think it was the, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Those were the 2 that we played a lot, and it was really fun. And so we'd have like sleepovers over at that friend's house, and we'd set up a tent in their backyard, and we'd like during the day we'd play like Diddy Kong Racing, all four controllers being passed around, and then sleeping over in the tent in the backyard. But yeah, this was I always liked being outside. I always liked hanging out with friends. And so honestly, during this like whole period, aside from coming home to sleep and eat dinner, it was like I tried to stay out as much as possible. And then when we moved, that became a lot harder, but I still tried to do that. We had a lot of consoles, but kind of the problem was because my dad was basically home all the time and just laying around, he a lot of time would be like watching TV or playing console games or whatever. And so like, if I wanted to play a console game, I had to wait for him to not be doing that. And he was doing that a lot. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to play outside then. So, yeah. I also got a little mini TV. I don't know, it was like this big like box TV. And I remember watching like, what's it called? Like Cartoon Network and just like, a lot of the kids station cartoon shows and stuff. And that's where I kind of like, I watched Pokemon. That was fun. I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! I watched some anime. Inuyasha was like one of the first anime I had watched. I guess technically Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon count, but it's kind of like those three were like the things I first watched. And then afterwards, yeah, it was just kind of, I got my first computer. I'm living with my grandfather, and I'm playing WoW. And I'm really loving. It's like I've fallen head over heels for this game. The fact that I can talk and socialize with a bunch of people. They don't know me. I'm just another guy out there grinding. So yeah, I played pretty much like, I played so much that it definitely impacted my like high school stuff. There was a point where they were like, hey, you're going to get held back a year and you're not going to graduate with everyone else because you are like behind by like a quarter, or like, I guess it was technically a semester. You're behind by like half a year. So what are you going to do about this? And we had a big intervention with all of my teachers, and they're like, okay, I'll tell you what. There's 2 weeks left before graduation. If you can get all of this homework that you haven't done throughout this entire half semester, or this entire semester, if you can turn it all in, we will graduate you. And I'm like, okay. So I played WoW for the entire 2 weeks. And then on the last day, I'm like, fuck, I probably should try and graduate, huh? And then I looked at what I actually had to do. And it was like I was a man possessed. I went into the library and I just was banging out like math assignments, writing assignments, researching all of this stuff, and it was like insane. And I got every single assignment done in a single day. I turned it all in. All the teachers were like flabbergasted. They're like, what did this kid do? Like, what the fuck happened? And it was good work. So yeah, I graduated because of that. Otherwise, it would have been held back a year. And the addiction continued past high school, where it's like classic, wake up, play the game. Eventually, when I got a job a little bit later in the year, I think it was like I graduated, there was like that, here we're registering for you for college. I got registered for college. I went to like one class and then I dropped it and I left. And then I ended up going to the first job. But in the interim, I was just playing WoW pretty much religiously. At that point, that was the only game in my sight. It was my life. And if I could at that time, I would have become my character. That's like how much I like cared about this game and about just all of the friendships I was making. There were so many, like, I won't go too into detail, but it was just a magical time for me when it came to escaping reality. And this is when the seeds of like, man, it'd be really cool if like maybe there were like more classes and more things you could do in this game. Like, that'd be awesome. And that kind of later turned into an obsession of like, I need to make a video game. But yeah. So I got pretty like deep in the weeds on like, I was in a lot of the top like guilds at the time. I had done content that most people couldn't do or didn't do at the time. I won't list specific achievements, but like just to get perspective, I was in some like world first guilds on different like raids that they went to. I played with people who were considered the like top like couple hundred people when it came to like player versus player stuff, when arenas showed up. And yeah, it was like there was a lot of stuff there where I have a lot of achievements throughout that thing, and I became very good to the point where like people knew me as being a very good player. And yeah, it was one of those kind of pivotal games that I just consumed. My like slash played, which is effectively how much time I spent in that game. On my main character, there's like 5 years of slash played, which means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5 years, effectively. My total account has maybe like 6 or 7 years of playtime. But like most of my playtime was, and I was very proud of like, yeah, my playtime is like 16 hours a day or 15 hours a day. Now, obviously, that's not actually, like, there's a lot of like AFKing and, you know, there's like going to work, but pretty much any time I wasn't at work and I wasn't sleeping, I was playing the game. And this went on throughout my second job and then into the first bit of college, where basically World of Warcraft was the game I played. And then I started kind of falling out of love with the game. There was a lot of changes they made that were really fucking bad. And they kept kind of making past achievements mean nothing. And that really bothered me because there was like a source of identity that I had with this character or set of characters at this point. And so I was like, maybe I'm not going to play this my whole life. And then I also started trying to like figure out about what am I going to do for a career, because I didn't want to just putz around doing nothing. So that's when the WoW addiction kind of slowly ebbed out. And I still played, but it was very casual at that point. Like, I had done everything I wanted to do in that game already. And so I just check out, like, oh, every couple years they do a new expansion. I'd check it out, be like, yep, okay, same old, different skin. And then I'd go back to doing my real life stuff. This is when I started really, all of the like sadness and loneliness and all of this stuff started really creeping in, because I didn't have all of these like friends online that I was talking to. Like, I still had some groups of people that I knew and communicated with, but since I wasn't playing WoW anymore, well, suddenly there's a lot less to talk about. And I had one group that kind of persisted past WoW, but everyone else just fell away. And so I was kind of left with this hole of like, okay, well, what do I do with all this time now that I'm not playing WoW? And so I was like, there was like a Minecraft phase. I started doing the like friendship, I don't know if friend slop's even the right word, because this is before friend slop. It was more like one friend picks, in real life, one friend picks a game that we're all going to play. We all get it. We all play it. It was fun for a couple weeks. And then we go and get another game. And we did this on Steam mainly. So, yeah. And then there was like Minecraft every year. Oh, it's that time of year. It's time to play Minecraft. Check on the updates. We'd have a server. We'd play for a while. We'd get bored. You know. Next year, new year, new server. So, gaming still was there, but it evolved to not be just one game. And the next kind of set of escapism stuff, I think I'm just kind of looking at like, what? I think there really was kind of a level of getting absorbed in, like, WoW was in the background, where I occasionally played it whenever I was bored. Then there was, like, a bunch of other games that I played. And then my grandfather started needing more and more help. And then I had the school thing. And at a certain point, it's like, aside from, like, playing when my grandfather was sleeping, basically, because it was like I could play WoW and do other things like that while my grandfather was sleeping, but I would have to kind of keep an ear open. And there was a lot of times when it would be like he'd be yelling and I'd be like, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear you. And he'd be like, Jesus Christ, you gotta hear me. And sometimes, like, if I had accidentally fallen asleep, I'd get, like, there'd be, like, banging, knocking, and he's like, Jesus Christ, I'm, like, waiting for you to come here, and I yelled, and you didn't say anything, and I got up on my own, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm so sorry, like, you know, it was, like, there was a while there where, like, hearing my name be called, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, at, like, 8 p.m. That's my normal, like, sleeping time. And I would just, like, panic and then realize he didn't actually call me. It was just my imagination because I hear it all the time. And then there was a lot of banging on the door to, like, wake me up. So I would get woken up to, like, that stuff all the time. And so the escapism, it's like I couldn't escape a lot of times just because I just didn't have time to, like, try and escape. But the escapism morphed, and now suddenly we're not escaping through video games, we're escaping through work, where you're just working. And it's like, I say work, the, like, helping my grandfather, and the, like, going to school, and then the doing the homework, like, that just took up all my time. So for a while there, I escaped through that, not really facing myself. And then the next phase, where I went to this 4-year university. And at the 4-year university, everything started hitting me. All the things I had been escaping from, I now had some time to think. And having time to think, that's like a no-go. And yeah, so it's like I basically just stayed in my room, tried to, like, I watched tons of anime at that time. It was like anime became the new escape because I didn't have, like, I wasn't playing World of Warcraft. I wasn't doing like lots of video games with friends because I had a lot of those friends had kind of just moved on doing other things. And so we couldn't hang out the same way we did. So now it's like all I really have is some sort of media that I could, like, watch. So I'm so sorry. Anyway, I forgot to mute it. So basically, I lost my train of thought. Oh, right, anime. So anime uh, became this kind of like all-consuming thing where I started watching YouTube a lot, and I'd listen to like the first like anime YouTubers that they would watch like every show from every season, and I started doing the same thing. I was like, wow, this is cool. I get to see all sorts of different stuff. Some anime were just trash, some anime were great, and I really went into this like anime phase where for several years during college it was like all I could think about was anime, and yeah, so it just became that was my new escape. And but that didn't really like it kind of had the opposite effect in a way, because the anime started connecting me to my feelings, because some shows really hit on the feels, and there were many shows where it was like I would just cry because I'm like, I don't know, like I thought it was just the show that I was like crying because of, but instead it wasn't the show. It was actually the the like stuff I'd been like blocking up, and the anime was bringing it out because I was like putting myself in the main character's shoes, and when they had something that maybe hit and resonated with me, boom, emotions. The flood comes out. And that, coupled with the counselor that I was seeing, I started really making some headway into like the literal ocean of emotions that I was like holding back by a dam. Like I had to build this like in my head. There was this giant dam that was basically blocking the sea of emotions that I had been suppressing. And I slowly whittled that sea down, where it still existed by the end, but it had transformed from I can't feel these emotions because they're like too overwhelming to like, okay, I've like integrated them into myself. So now the ocean's still there, but it's like I don't fear anything in the ocean anymore. But that took a while, and that, you know, that's like further down. But anyway, so after anime, what was my next kind of thing? I did go back to WoW when the new kind of, they're like, hey, we're gonna make classic servers, and I was like, oh my god, I loved classic. That was like my childhood into like adulthood. And so I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna play that again. And I loved it. I met a bunch of friends. We made a guild together. It was awesome. And then we did that again later, but it very much wasn't all consuming like it used to be. Where now I kind of recognized it as like, okay, I need some sort of balance here. I'll, do raiding a couple times a week, but like that's what I can commit to. And it was a fun time. Both times that I kind of went down that path. Any other escape stuff? Uh, I started getting into like idle games. I really liked seeing like progress, and so those made me feel like I was progressing in some way, even though because it's like I don't know, there's just something there where my brain's like, yeah, number go up, hell yeah. um, and then also, of course, there was like some Minecraft at certain periods. And there was also, sorry, um, there was also, what's it called? Oh yeah, there were some gacha games. I got sucked into the gacha world. That was mainly like a COVID thing. When I actually had some money to use in gacha games, but like there was one time before where I remember spending like my entire paycheck on like a gacha game, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't have food now because I did that. Uh, so I quickly just removed that game from my phone because I was like, nope, nope. Um, but I could tell that I was very addicted to like the like loot boxes, and there was kind of a whole stint where in the past I had been big on like opening different like boxes of cards, and you know opening packs was like so it felt so good to do, and always got so excited. I'd play like pack wars where it was basically just gambling but with the shop like owner, where we would both get a pack of cards from a game that we're playing or whatever, and we'd open it and we'd just do value of like whatever cost more, and then the winner gets all the packs. So we do that like once or twice a week. It was really bad. Like, the addiction was real. So yeah. And then I kind of get into like the COVID era for real, where it's like I was just kind of... There's actually an escapism of like weed plus like meditation, which I guess technically the meditation was like healthier, but like needing weed to do it felt, I don't know. It was weird. Like, obviously I'm glad that I went through that experience, but man, it was something. I just remember kind of like at the time, every time I would take weed, I would lay back, and I remember just kind of falling into this abyss. Like I was on the surface of an ocean, and then I just kept falling and falling and falling. And the deeper I kind of went, the more I was able to explore things. And this is where, like, I started realizing how deep, like, my internal stuff went. I was like, holy shit, there's, like, so much there. And it was, like, interesting and scary to explore. So I explored it with the help of weed. But yeah, that was like a big moment of like realizing that there's a lot that I need to start to like work through. And I started trying, like, I did some some meditations with specific like people, where like I did certain classes. I didn't like see them in person, but they had like courses that I could follow. And one of the courses actually like scared me because of how effective the meditation was. Where like I felt like I was on weed, but I wasn't on weed while doing the meditation. And it scared me, and I stopped doing it. And that's where I also started to like understand that there's maybe a little bit more to my existence than just a physical body. And didn't really come online until after the ego death stuff, going into the void. But coming back, it was like I couldn't escape anymore. It was impossible to escape because it was all pervasive, all around me, at all times. So I had to just work through it. And that's like, the second counselor like really helped me work through a lot of that. And be okay just being myself and living in my own skin. So yeah. So there was that. And then after I became like able to function, that's when the really deep work started, where I like delved into the abyss. I had the void to kind of, I didn't understand at the time, but I had the void to kind of protect me from the abyss, almost as like a little bubble, where I could observe the abyss without actually getting inundated by it. And I started seeing a lot of this like negative self-talk and, you know, all of the stuff that I just allowed to kind of permeate me. I didn't realize that I had been taking in the things that people say and feel about me and just let it just sit with me. So I started purging a lot of that because obviously I don't want to be holding on to other people's emotions or other people's feelings on what they think about me. And I did like mirror work. I did like, there are a bunch of different techniques that I understand is basically all just shadow work, but from like different lenses of perspective. So yeah, so I did that, and after a while, I just kind of stopped running altogether. Like, there was a you can't escape this, and then once I became good to the point where theoretically I had a choice to escape it, I still worked on facing it. And yeah, like, obviously I had entertainment and stuff that I would do, but I never let that stop me from working on myself. And then I kind of hit the final stretch last year where it was like, okay, there's like this level of peace that I've never felt before. There's no more like suddenly there's a bunch of drama happening. And I finally got to just rest for the first time. And it was a needed rest. And then I just started working on repairing and fixing and cleansing and reframing. And I just spent like, sometimes I would spend a whole day like working on this, where I'd be like listening to music and I'd let my feelings come out, and then I'd write some stuff down, and it was like an active progress or active process rather, where it was just like I started really digging, excavating, and then I kind of realized I excavated most of the stuff that I needed to excavate. And I looked kind of, like, metaphorically, I looked around and it's kind of like, okay, well, what's left? And it was like the deepest, hardest thing, which was like self-love. I had been like so alone, so deprived of like this love that I've always wanted to feel and have. And I tried to look for it in other people. And no one could give it to me. That love that I wanted. And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna give it to myself. Why can't I just love myself? And then I started, it literally was like a switch, where it was like, yep, I'm gonna love myself. And then I did. And, but first it was kind of before that, it was like accepting who I am and the journey I've done, and forgiving. A lot of forgiving on like forgiving myself for just all the mistakes that I made throughout the years, and forgiving other people for the things that they've done that I wasn't okay with. Forgiving myself for the times that I didn't stand up for myself. And for the times that I bullied someone who didn't stand up for themselves. And I say bullied, but like, it's like, not in the traditional sense, where it was more like, this is how I think you should do things, so you should do it this way. And maybe I had a good point, maybe I didn't, but like, I didn't hear that they were like, hey, I don't want to do it that way. And you can't force people to like see things. And so like, I felt like I was like, oh yeah, I have these insights, you need to listen to me, because I know like what's going on for you. And it's like, I didn't understand the free will thing yet. Like, obviously I understood autonomy and free will from like a high perspective, but it wasn't like, oh, you shouldn't, even if you think you know exactly what the person needs, you shouldn't force your perspective onto them. You shouldn't like badger them and kind of like pressure them into like trying to see it your way. And so I had done that a lot in my like earlier 20s. And there was also a lot of like frustration and anger about like feeling like my life was just totally out of control, where it's like I just had no time for several years to do like anything. I felt like I was being behind. There's all sorts of stuff that just I had to work through. And I couldn't run. I couldn't hide, because if I did, I knew that I was just going to make the same mistakes again. So I had to face everything. There were so many songs that really, like, I resonated with, that were, like, all about, like, facing yourself, facing the things that you need to face, and yeah, I totally just, the process of letting go of the, like, judgment. I don't need to judge myself. At each moment throughout my life, I did the best I could, just as everyone else does the best they can. And we make mistakes. It's just how life is going to be. And I think if you've done the best you could under the circumstance, why should you judge yourself? Even if you made a mistake that really, like, hurt someone else or other people or yourself. It's a learning experience. So just learn from it. Don't do the same mistake again. That's where it's like, okay, the true mastery here comes from, like, you make a mistake, you don't do the same mistake again, and you learn from it. And then if you really, really, like, want to get ahead of things, you can work on things that could become mistakes in the future that you're, like, rooting around and digging around in there, and it's like, oh, this could become a problem in the future because this is a problematic behavior that I recognize within myself. And so you can proactively, like, influence and fix that. And when you do that, you don't have to go through the mistake. So it's like there's the two ways of learning. There's learning through mistakes, or the hard way, and then there's learning through, like, proactive self-reflection. And that is also hard, but you would consider it the easy way in the physical world, where it's like, well, you don't have to go through something awful or inflict some sort of awful thing onto someone else in order to learn the lesson. But yeah, and now I come to kind of now, which is all of this stuff that I've worked through, all of the hours and hours of time that I spent working on myself are kind of coming to fruition. And now I can I don't know. I can just be myself. And I don't have to apologize for being myself. I love myself. There's no internal judgment. I just be myself. And by being myself, things just work out. It's when I'm not myself and I let fear or what other people think cloud my judgment, that's when I start to run into problems. But the, like, inner kind of knowing is like a beacon. As long as I just follow the beacon, everything works out. And that is something where it's like, it sounds magical, and you can't really explain it to someone else. Like, obviously I'm explaining this, but there's like intellectual knowing, and then there's knowing. And the knowing is something that you can only experience to truly grasp what it actually means. And so if you want to have that knowing, you have to clean out everything that, like, is limiting you first from being who you truly are. And it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of crying. There's a lot of letting go of emotions. And it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and make it happen. So yeah. It's it's important to do. And you don't have to dive deep into yourself in the beginning. You can just start with surface stuff. You know, an example would be you cut someone off in traffic. That's a small thing. Probably most people don't even think about. They just do the thing because they're like, I need to do this for me. And they don't think about other people around them. And to them, their life at that moment is way more important than whatever anyone else is doing. So that's why it happens. And kind of like, as an example, like digging into that and being like, well, why do I feel that way? Why do I act that way? Because everyone else, they also have full lives just like me. And their life is just as important as mine. Their lived experience is just as important as mine. And they're not some random NPC that you can just blow off and say, who cares what they're doing. And it's kind of like, I've mentioned this in the past, but it's humanizing people as actual people and not just side characters that, like, interact with you occasionally. Because just as you're seeing them as a side character, other people will see you as a side character. But if you see everyone as a player or someone who has a full lived experience, suddenly cutting people off seems a lot more fucked up. So you just don't do it naturally. Because you're like, well, I wouldn't want to be cut off. So I shouldn't do that to other people. Because I would be upset if someone did that to me. And it's like, as soon as you shift into that perspective, suddenly a lot of the things that you may be doing seemingly as like it doesn't matter, suddenly they do matter, and you stop doing them. So, but anyway, I've kind of gone a little far off. My point with all of this is escapism was very much like, it was my crutch to, like, stop myself from seeing the ocean of things I was just letting sit and not dealing with. And it was only after I kind of removed the distractions, or in this case was forced to remove the distractions. Because there was, just as a side thing, there was literally a moment where I tried to play WoW to distract myself from this crazy feeling. And I couldn't. It actually made it worse. So I didn't even have the option of distracting myself. Because it was like I was being forced to see everything that I had been bottling up and holding back by the dam. So, yeah. Again, easy way or the hard way. They're both hard. Spoilers, they're both hard. They're just hard in different ways. And to a certain degree, these, like, what I would kind of say are tower moments. These tower moments that people have where it's like they have to face something are almost easier because it's like you're forced to face it, and so you just kind of have to just do the thing. Sometimes it is harder to look within yourself and try and figure out, is this a problem? Is something that I'm doing actually like an issue here? There was a bad reaction that someone had to something I said. Is that a me problem? Is that a them problem? Is it both of us? You know, checking in with yourself, making sure that you're not you don't want to be a doormat, but you also don't want to be an asshole. So there's a fine balance. There's confidence, and then there's arrogance. Having confidence is great. Having arrogance, not so much. So, and I'm still like trying to balance that a little bit, but you know, we're all kind of at all points in our life, there's the potential to continue to grow. And I've kind of taken the reins to my growth and am steering a little bit instead of just kind of letting tower moments happen to me and then having to face the thing and then growing from it. Instead, it's the active where I'm like, okay, what can I learn here? What's going on? And it never becomes a big tower moment because I've kind of gotten ahead of the tower moment that I might have had in the past. So, and it's not easy, you know, but so yeah, I think I've kind of covered everything, and yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's just like the experience I had when it came to like distracting myself and trying to like ignore all of these things. You're not going to be able to do it. There will be a time when all of the stuff you've been trying to avoid will show up. It just will happen. And so you have a choice to face the things on your terms, in your time, or you will face them in these tower moments that are awful experiences that you're going to go through. Some of them are worse than others, but, you know, when you do problematic behavior due to not facing a lot of this stuff, it'll come back in these tower moments. So, yeah. We always have a choice. Even if it doesn't feel like we do. We always have a choice. So, choose wisely. Or it'll be chosen for you. Alright. Thank you. And see you in the next one.